How is Overwatch 2 after an entire year? With the game now being out for a while, many people have been able to try out the new game that was supposed to clean up gray areas from the first game, along with providing new services and creative features to the exciting sequel. There was a lot of hype and controversy around this game being released, as a large majority had a lot of pushback to the game coming out with the sequel, as it didn't really make any sense with coming out with one when it could have been added to the game as a large update instead of rebranding the current game as Overwatch 2. There were promises made and high expectations to say less, but from a player's experience and perspective, how did Overwatch, or rather Blizzard, do in the end? 4 main points I want to highlight is taking a look at the high-level changes that Overwatch has made, the promises they have brought out, new systems, player-based reactions and ratings, and finally, the long-term future for Overwatch. If you look back on the original Overwatch game that Blizzard released, the biggest change that really caught the eyes of everyone for the new sequel was that it was going to be free to play. That in itself was a big move for Blizzard since everyone knew what Blizzard was going to do. It would end up being similar to the likes of other popular titles such as CSGO, Valorant, Fortnite, League of Legends, and so on, just to name a few. People knew this game was going to have a shop in it, which honestly gathered negative attention. This would mean that Overwatch would have to remove the loot boxes which they had in the game since the release of the first game back in 2016. With the legal repercussions, along with the social criticism, it seemed like this was Overwatch's way to find a new way to monetize their game. For the current players, the biggest change for them was that the game was going to be 5v5 instead of 6v6. A story mode was announced so that players could get the lore of Overwatch and experience Overwatch firsthand in the perspective of the heroes through the gameplay of PvE. These were the biggest changes that we were all familiar with, and we were constantly surrounded by news articles or social media postings on new changes and possible rumors. Not to mention that Blizzard had also promised a frequent and scheduled release of new maps and heroes, as there was a lot of criticism due to the lack of updates to Overwatch 1. I guess the biggest promise which essentially failed was the hero mode PvE. PvE for Overwatch has been teased for quite a while now. People were excited for this new game mode since it really was something unique and brought a breath of fresh air to the game. Not only do you get to play something that isn't against other players, but it's kind of like an RPG game. You explore the lore of the characters, what exactly happened or is happening in the current lore, and you get to try out new heroes. The main selling point to this is that there would be a character progression system within the PvE. That in itself garnered a lot of attention for everyone. It was a welcome and unique feature that we all wanted to try out, and it definitely wasn't something that was commonplace within games that we played in the past. Blizzard also teased new mechanics that would make the PvE much more exciting. Within the short videos and updates that the Overwatch team would show in public, it gave the NPC enemies much more life. It wasn't as bland and robotic as we had previously seen, and it looked very promising.
When we look back at BlizzCon 2019 and we talk about some of the criticisms that we had, one of them as a development team that we felt was that the combat was just not engaging enough. So the fact that our combat wasn't highly engaging to us as players meant that we had a problem with the enemy units, and that they just weren't feeling interesting enough.
Now, PvE is currently up and live right now, so you can try it out for yourself. They did seem to improve in this direction, as it was a great improvement to what we had been used to. Now, going back to the hero mode PvE, unfortunately Blizzard has said that they have changed their focus on this to be story mode missions that will be released every so seasons. This does mean that they lived up to the promise of having a PvE experience, but it's just not the same as what they initially promised with the hero progression. With the announcement of this pivot in their PvE, you can only imagine how the public reaction was on this. People were very upset since it was a big interest for many people. It was a side to Overwatch that was completely new to their franchise, and essentially reinforced a community that was focused on PvE rather than PvP that Overwatch has always been. It's also important to highlight the fact that in order to unlock PvE or the story missions for Overwatch, it's something that you need to pay for. Now, the unique hero progression system is not something that Overwatch completely scrapped, I feel like. We saw Overwatch briefly use it in the new Halloween event where you could get buffs or unique abilities for killing bosses or unlocking crates. While it's not what we all wanted, we can only look at these abilities that are briefly available to us and imagine what kind of a game Overwatch would have been if they didn't decide to pivot their goals. With a major change to the game, it's only natural that there are changes to the system and how everything works. The three biggest things that come to mind right now are the Battle Pass, the competitive system, and the shop. The Battle Pass is something that came with a lot of criticism. People do not like Battle Passes. Well, I should say the majority don't. That on itself was a big change that people had to get used to. Every time you see a game that is free to play, it will always have something like a Battle Pass to generate revenue. We see this happen in almost every free game out there. If not a Battle Pass, guess what? It's some sort of a shop. Now, where do I get started on the shop? The shop is exactly what you think it is. A place where you can use real money to buy skins and other cosmetics for the heroes that you want to buy it for. This too has brought a lot of controversy, mostly in the aspect that it costs way too much money. We as players do not know exactly how much time and effort and money went into the creation of these cosmetics, but it's very expensive at times. You can be the judge of the shop and its cost and whether it is right to have such skins priced this high, but it does seem like a lot of money to put in, say, 10 to 20 bucks for a skin that doesn't really have much design at times. To be fair though, in recent times it does seem like the skins now include a lot of designs on them. We can only hope in the future that the skins are justified for the prices that they are going for, and that Overwatch continues to put in the work to design unique cosmetics that are priced fairly. Now, Blizzard does include a unique feature where you can earn the Overwatch currency by doing weekly challenges to save up for either the Battle Pass or certain skins in the future. Unfortunately, you are only limited to a total of 60 Overwatch coins per week. This in itself would take months of doing these challenges just for a player to buy one Battle Pass or cosmetic item in the store. Finally, I want to talk about the competitive changes. To be honest, there was a lot of people that liked this new system. It was a lot easier to rank up and it really wasn't as stressful as the previous one. The new system was completely reworked in the sense where they included a new way to progress through the ranks by including a unique feature where your performance was tracked and depending on your total wins and losses, would rank you up or down. Yes, Elo Hell does exist and people do suffer in them, but changes were made which made it a lot easier to rank up and it felt much more rewarding. Of course, with the new system such as the ranking system being altered, there would be weird cases where lower ranked players would be in higher ranked games. But other than that, it was something refreshing and new to the grindy competitive system that many people had issues with in the first game. Okay, so this one is sort of tricky. Depending on who you ask, you will get different answers. In one instance, people really loved the game. They love how the game made many changes, they love how the game went free to play, especially people who wanted to experience Overwatch but didn't want to purchase it. It definitely grew the player population initially with a huge surge of new and returning players. This number has definitely gone down significantly as of today, but it gave a lot of people the chance to experience Overwatch for the first time in a new way. On the flip side, there are people who genuinely dislike the game. They don't like the changes, the new systems, or whatever it may be. Regardless though, there will always be critical points within the game that people dislike or like. It's just how everything works. Now, with the release of Overwatch going to Steam, I think I may know what the overwhelming population feels about the game. It's no surprise that the game is losing its player base gradually, even if it's just a meme to call this game trash and complain about it. At the end of the day, people are still going to play it. Now, one can argue that the issues that were prevalent within the first game are still ongoing in the new game. This can also be added with the addition of PvE, where people have their own thoughts as to how Blizzard should have handled the situation. What is Overwatch's future like? The first game lasted 6 years. There have been many changes and additions to the game where you can justify it being a sequel. As of recording this, BlizzCon has just finished. They released teasers for new maps and new heroes coming in the future. There definitely is a bright future for Overwatch, and it's not like the game is performing bad. With a new addition of collaborations, it seems like the game is still in great condition. Le Seraphim is the most recent collaboration that Blizzard has done, and it seems like it has done excellent. While I do not know the total revenue generated from the skins, I can definitely see it being a lot. From seeing at least one person in every match I play in having one of the skins, and from what I've seen from Steam, I think the collaborations that they are doing is very smart and profitable. The future of Overwatch is ultimately up to Blizzard. Overwatch 1's fallout can be highlighted by a multitude of reasons where you can argue that it was a lack of updates, game-altering and game-destroying balances, or just the company itself and all the legal issues it faced. Ultimately though, Overwatch 2 has an opportunity for a clean slate where the team can prioritize the current game and make it a fun experience for everyone involved.